All right, today we're going live in Birmingham. Turn on my chat just in case I'm in chat on YouTube. I always forget to do this, so I apologize, everybody. So today we're in 35214, slightly northwest of Birmingham. Let's see what properties we got. Okay, now let's look at this one. So 525 Telford Lane, Birmingham, Alabama, 35214. Okay, this property is listed for $139,900. Looking for favorable purchaser, looking for new electrical upgrade, so that's good. Sold as of. This property's been on the market for 171 days. That's a really long time. All right, so they're probably right for some kind of sold as is. What kind of issues there are? What's going on? And they've been listed since January. Someone bought this for 135 grand. That's silly. All right, let's go and take a look at this property. So for the most part, it looks relatively turnkey. Flooring looks okay. Kitchen looks okay. Huh. This floor mat looks a little nasty. That's okay. Maybe they just did a cosmetic rehab. They didn't do a good job with it, or they maybe overpriced it. So good to know that 140 grand is not moving in this property, right? So I'll pay close attention to this just because if I do a heavy rehab in the zip code, then I want to know exactly what this property is going to rent out for because it looks relatively turnkey. This is probably the finishes I might go for if I don't want to go too crazy with things. So 139,900 bucks. So let's first go ahead and get some numbers for this property. I'm assuming this is Jefferson County. Yep, do a control find on county. So the next thing I want to do is I want to look for my fair market rents. To get my fair market rents, I'm gonna go into Google Hot FMR, click on the first link, click on access to small area FMRs right here. After I click on that, I'm gonna look up FY 2024 small area FMRs. FMR stands for fair market rents, right? Just so everybody looks at this. And then we're gonna go look at Alabama. I was thinking I was in Texas for some reason because I was analyzing a Texas property yesterday. Jefferson County. So what is this property? 35214. So what's my rent ceiling? My rent ceiling for a 4 bed in 35214 is 1510. 1510. Okay, 1510. And then my 3 bed is going to be 1350. 1350. Writing down all these numbers so that I can remember next time I see a deal in 35214, I can start looking up my other analysis files for 35214. Okay. Now that I got my rent ceiling, I need to go look for my market rent. So in order to do that, I'm gonna go to affordablehousing.com. I'm gonna go to the owner section. I'm gonna go to the market rent estimator. I'm gonna plug in a bedroom count for here. And the most important number you're gonna care about here is this number on the bottom right, where it says that for 25 units within a 3.8 mile radius, the average rent is 1428. 1428. Now, plus side is that it's lower than a 1510, so I can reasonably use the 1428, which is the lower of the two, for my rent assumptions on this property. 1628 in the zip, 1911 in the county. There's not a lot of 4 bedrooms in here. 1452. Okay, so now that I got these rents in here, let me see, just out of curiosity, what does the 3 bedroom look like? Is there a big lift from a 3 to a 4? Yes, because it goes from 1158 to 1428. That's almost 300 bucks difference. And this is a 1.66 mile radius. So I'm not going to fill in all the details because I really just cared about the 4 bedroom. Now, you have to take the lower of the two because of the rent reasonableness test. Now, what is the rent reasonableness test? Okay. If you go to the Housing Choice Voucher Program Guidebook, and HCV, Housing Choice Voucher, that's what it stands for, was formerly known as the Section 8 program. Now, in this program guidebook, you go to section 2.2, and there's a test called the rent reasonableness test, which essentially states that the PHA, or the Public Housing Authority, must determine whether the rent to the owner is a reasonable rent in comparison to rent for other comparable homeless units. So typically, you have to underwrite properties with the rent assumption that it has to be comparable to other non-voucher holders, which means market rent, right? Because they say you can't charge more rent to somebody simply because they are a voucher holder, right? For obvious reasons. Now, in this scenario, right, typically you might say, hey, obviously the size and your type still matters. You got to compare apples to apples, right? So apartments to apartments, single family to single family homes. But it's not very typical you see a 4-bedroom apartment. So I'm pretty confident that these 25 units are probably all single family homes because you don't really build 4-bedroom apartments. Very, very rare. I rarely ever hear of any developer doing that. So this gives me a lot of confidence that 1428 is the right rent to use because it's the lower of the two when you compare it to the rent ceiling of 1510, right? Usually the 1510 also includes some utilities, so I think 1428 or 1400 is a pretty good number. Okay, so I'll put 1400 bucks there. Now for this property, let's go and plug in some details here. 139,900. So that's the purchase rate. 139,900. And for my renovations, I'm gonna go to my rehab calculator. It looks like it's rent ready, to be honest with you, but I might replace 2 of the toilets with high pressure flush toilets so I don't get any clogged toilet calls, right? For my flooring, I don't think I need to do any flooring. Just in case there's some like blemishes or maybe something broken and causing some scratches, I'm gonna do 1490, which is the total square footage. I'm gonna divide it by 5. So I'm assuming maybe there's some touch up paint for about 20% of the house. I have no idea what's going on with the house right now. I'm just gonna assume that one, I'm gonna paint a little bit of the home. I got $500 for landscaping, keep the outside clean, and I got $1,500 for my roof repair. Now, just be very careful, right? If I get a sewer scope on this property, Birmingham has a lot of sewer infrastructure problems. So make sure you get a sewer scope. So that could add another 3, 5, 7 grand easily, right, for a sewer line repair. So just be very careful about that. But we can talk through what might happen when that happens. So this gives me a total rehab about $4,500 right now for this relatively, from the surface at least, looking like a turnkey property. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to get my expenses, so my taxes and my insurance. So let me scroll down on the Redfin website, and I'm just going to take these two numbers right here. Where's the payment calculator? Oh, usually there's the payment calculator. Where did it go today? Oh, here we go. Oh, what happened to the payment calculator? That's interesting. Usually there is something here. Maybe they're taking other property taxes in there. Well, for the past, because good thing I've been in this market a lot. So, oh, there it is, 81 bucks. I was gonna guess $100 for each taxes and insurance, so that would have been pretty close. So now it's 81 for property taxes, and then I would have picked $100 times 1.2. So this is 108. So that's a estimate for a primary residence property. I'm gonna multiply it by 1.2, so it can add a 20% premium to the insurance number, right? So all in all, this equals to roughly 210. I was thinking 200, so that was pretty close. All right, that just comes from just doing this over and over and understanding where the trends have been typically. So now that I got 10% for my maintenance, that's set aside every single month, right? Because the roof's gonna get replaced eventually, the water heater's gonna get replaced eventually, somebody's gonna get replaced. So you gotta set aside money every single month for maintenance because that money doesn't belong to you, right? In 15 years from now, when you're replacing your roof and you thought you made an extra $140 every single month, well, that's just not the case. That's not reality. So you got to be able to make sure that you're putting together the right set of numbers for what you're looking for. Okay. Then I got no money for HOA because not HOA. I got 10% for property management. I got 5% for vacancy on this property. So as a 4-bed, also got to put in my down payment. So in my down payment, I got 25% in F19. So E19 is going to equals to my asking price in B4, and I'm going to multiply it by my down payment in F19, and that's going to equals to my total amount of 34,975. Okay, I got no arrears, so I've zeroed that out. There's no other assignment fees or commissions like I had for off-market deals. I got 2.5% for closing costs on the deal. I got $4,552 for the renovations reserve. So then I'm going to put in my renovations. I mean my financing assumption. So my financing assumption is going to be in K4, right? K4 equals to my asking price minus my down payment. So asking price in B4 minus my down payment in E19. So I'm going to be financing $104,000, assuming I bought the property for 139. Now, I'm going to increase my interest rate to about 8.25 because that's probably what I'm seeing right there. 1031. Let's just do 715. Let's do today's date. 715, 2024. Okay, so now that I got all my calculations through, if I am able to truly rent this property at $1,400, that's a 4-bedroom, $1,400, I would cash flow $51 after all my expenses, and that's going to equal to a 1.4% return, assuming I bought this property for $139,900. Now, just remember, right, this property is not moving, so I'm assuming something's wrong with it, or somebody got an inspection and said this is going to cost way more money. So let's just go ahead and play with the scenarios a little bit. So let's start with, well, assuming my return requirement is 10%. Right? Watch what happens to this cash on cash number in E9 as I update my asking price. So if I lower this to, let's say, $100,000, oh, okay, well, now it's a 10.3% return. Okay, so if I rent this property as 4-bedroom, $1,400, I would now be cash flowing $276 a month, and that's a 10.3% return, assuming I bought this property for $100,000, assuming everything else stays this consistent and the same at 45.50, 8.25% return. Okay. So now that it's a deal for me, right? Again, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. I'm simply showing you all the work on how you pull the different levers to make a deal, quote unquote, work for whatever your risk appetite is. You got to consult with your own investment professionals on that. All right. So let's say now that I offer the property and the seller decided to go for it because, well, they're not moving, right? It's been on the market for so long. But another way to go about it is, well, what if the seller is so stuck and so steadfast in their head about getting $139,900 from it? Well, in that scenario, let's go back to 139,900, right? That goes back to 1.43% return. Now, what if I give a 25% down payment, but I turn the seller into the bank, which means that they're going to finance me the portion. So let's say it was a 3%, right? And there's no idea or no confirmation that someone else would actually do this. But now all of a sudden you say, well, I'll give you 25% down if you become the bank, Miss or Mr. Seller, and you give it to me for 3.5%. Because now all of a sudden, even though I'm paying you $139,900, it was a 1% return because my interest rate was 8.25. But when you lower the interest rate for 3.5% for the remaining amount that needs to be financed, all of a sudden it's now a 10.3% return again. So here's another way I can go it. I can rent this property out for $1,400 as a 4-bedroom. I will calculate $368 a month. I'm still going to make 10% on this money. But in this scenario, I'm paying $139,000. My rehab is still $45.50. I'm still giving 25% down, but my interest rate now is 3.5%. So in this scenario, it's still a deal because it's still 10% return. And that's just my criteria, right? Like this is the minimum I really want to settle for. All right. But in this scenario, okay, well, let's go back to 8.25%, right? Let's go back to that scenario. Now it's 8.25% and we had to go out to $100,000. Now, what if all of a sudden, right, because this property has been sitting on the market for a while, you go and get an inspection and your rehab, let's say, quintuples 5x because of some sewer line scope issues and whatever. And now all of a sudden your rehab went from 4,500 to almost 22,800, 22.8. Your return just lowered, right, from 10 to 6.6. So in response, you probably had to go to the seller and say, well, now, Mr. Seller, I'm only willing to give you $82,000, right? Because that's still a 10% return. So even though your rehab from $100,000 quintupled, right, to 22,800, right, 22,800, that's what we're going for. Yep, 22,800. Well, you can now have to ask your seller for an $18,000 credit or lower the purchase price to $82,000 because of that rehab issue. Because this is the only way you can get back to a 10% return by lowering your asking price. So why do we go through the exercise, right? This is still assuming 8.25% interest rate. All we're trying to do is one, figure out, yeah, you can wrap it too. That's a great point. This is how you figure out how do you pull the levers accordingly to turn something into a deal that you might have previously it wasn't a deal, right? In some scenarios, you might turn this from a 4-bed to a 5-bed, and you got to add the right renovation expenses to convert that extra bedroom, right? Get the permits for and everything. But in your mind, you have to ask, is it worth my execution risk? And in this scenario, why we're underwriting every single day is because we have to figure out whether this is worth our time. is this worth my time to one, send a contractor out there to give me a bid on a project? Because there's only so many good contractors. And you have to be really, really careful with your goodwill, right? About how many times you send someone out there and not pay them. I mean, frankly, I think you should always pay them to go out there for inspection, give you a bid, because otherwise you're not valuing their time. And people don't like people that don't value their time. All right. So all we did was one, figure out the levers. Is this worth my time? And further, in this scenario, because it's almost a 40 grand delta, I'm like, I'm not going to put an offer in. Like 40 grand is a lot of money. But if this stays on the market for any longer, you might offer a creative financing term. The only reason I wouldn't do it in this scenario is because one, this property was bought apparently in 2022 for 135 grand. So I'm assuming they probably owed a lot more money on it, or maybe you can sub to it, right? The underlying loan is 3.5%. You might be able to get it for 139,900. Then that might work. For me, I'm only doing burrs right now, so that's why I'm not really interested in this deal. But I wanted to go through exercise and show you all the work and show you the game and the process to figure out how to pull the levers. All right. So that's it for today. I hope you guys have an amazing Monday. I hope you guys spend some quality time with your family and friends today. And if you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io. Go to the Get Deal Analysis tool. Once you're there, plug in your name, email, phone number, promise won't spam you, and you get the, and you only tell it. That's exactly right. Hey, thank you so much for joining, man. I really appreciate it. All right, put in your name, your email, your address, get your free deal analysis sheet, and I hope you guys just copy my homework. Analyze the same deal analyze today using the same word, explain one part better. That's it. That's what I'm telling you. Please explain it better than I can, because this is how we make each other better. And we put it on your own spreadsheet and put it on your own YouTube channel. You're going to get that confidence that you know what you're doing when the time comes. Please do it. This is the only way you can get the confidence. And if a partner ever asks you, why do you think this is a deal? You can point them to your own YouTube channel at that point in time. And you can say, this is a deal because I spent the past 289 days analyzing a deal every single day. No excuses. I've been consistent. And this is how I know this is a deal. All right. That's going to give yourself confidence and your partners confidence. Have an amazing Monday, everybody. I'll be back here again tomorrow for day 290. I'll probably live a little bit later in the day tomorrow, but that's okay. Doing a little travel tomorrow. Have an amazing day, and I'll be back here again tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.